Hello everyone, Si-Osiris here, and today I'm going to be talking about an ancient Egyptian hero you probably never heard of, and telling you a secret about him. Note there will be spoilers for the stories of Setna 1 and Setna 2 in this video. So, this is my image of this hero. I created it because there are no online images which I could find. So, who is he? Well, he's supposed to be 12 years old, and he was an ancient Egyptian prince. At this point, I'm going to begin going into who he was. His name was Si-Osiris. He was a famous magician in the Setna stories from the late period of ancient Egypt. So this would be New Kingdom through the Ptolemaic era. Approximately between Ramses II and Cleopatra, the whatever she was, the one who was involved with Julius Caesar. So before I'm going to talk about Si-Osiris, I'm going to talk about his father, Setna. Setna was actually based on a real person, shown here. This real person's name was Quamsit. Prince Quamsit was one of the sons of Ramses II. You may know him as Ramses the Great. And for 5 years of his life, the last 5 years of his life, he was heir to the throne. Setna was the mythological version. In the myth, he was famous as a powerful magician who sometimes let his arrogance get the better of him. The real-life Prince Quamsit can be seen to have certain elements from which that depiction is pulled. Namely, Quamsit would frequently go into other people's tombs. Note that a lot of versions say he was doing it to restore them and to glorify his father, Ramses the Great, who was an ancient Egyptian master of propaganda. So, that trait of breaking into tombs is taken into the character of Setna. In his most famous story, he actually goes into a tomb he really shouldn't have. You can find this version under Setna 1, or by searching Setna and the Sealed Letter. There are many, many different versions of it. It was even turned into a book. But back to the real-life Prince Quamsit. He was a priest of Ptah, the creator god. And he was also known for being involved in building certain temples. I'm also going to mention one or two other media properties in which Setna appears. Let's note that Si-Osiris does not appear in any of them. Setna can be seen in a well-known Rick Riorden book series by a slightly different name spelling. You will see different spellings because the name was written in ancient Egyptian. And you can also find him in Age of Mythology, a strategy video game based off mythology. However, compared to Setna, Si-Osiris is a not well-known figure. So, at this point, I'm going to start talking about the stories known as Setna 2, which feature Si-Osiris alongside his father. The first part of these stories is what's known as a katabasis, or a journey into the underworld. The most famous katabasis in classical mythology is that of Odysseus or Aeneas, depending on which version you're looking at. So above I have an image of the Book of the Dead, which was used as a guide for the dead soul to travel through the underworld. Certain figures you may see in this are Osiris on the throne. He was the pharaoh of the dead. You'll see Emmet, who devoured the souls of sinners. He is the really weird critter there. And you'll also see Thoth, who recorded everything down. He's the bird-headed guy. So the story of Si-Osiris' journey into the underworld starts after his father witnesses two funerals, one of a rich man with many great worldly possessions, and one of a poor man. In various versions, the poor man has only his family, or he has no one. And in response to that, Setna says that he would rather be the rich man. Si-Osiris contradicts him and says, no, you would not wish to if you saw what happens in the next world. At that point, Si-Osiris takes them both to the underworld, and they do the whole journey to there. There's mentions of various punishments for sinners, or that's left out, depending on the retelling, until finally they reach the Hall of Judgment, which was the hall of the pharaoh of the underworld, Osiris. Now, there is one thing about Si-Osiris which connects him to the underworld. You might be noticing it since I've said the name Osiris. Well, his name actually means the gift of Osiris. There is a connection there. I will mention it in probably a few minutes. So, back to the story. In some versions, the pair walk into the hall and witness the judgment ceremony. In another version, they just witness the aftermath. In the version where they see the judgment ceremony, the rich man and the poor man walk into the hall. And the rich man's soul is weighed first. His heart is placed on the scale across from the feather of truth. His heart sinks below the feather of truth. And his heart is devoured by Ammit, essentially making him no longer exist. The poor man, on the other hand, has his heart rise above the feather, and he is granted entry into Aru, the ancient Egyptian underworld. In the story, after the poor man is judged worthy, he is attired like a nobleman, and Si-Osiris uses this to teach his father Setna, saying that is why he said that you would not want to be the rich man. Setna 2, Part 2, the part that Si-Osiris mainly focuses in, is what I like to call the magician's duel. It occurs later than the prior one. In the magician's duel, the story opens with a foreign magician from either Ethiopia or Nubia, you'll see it different depending on the version, strides into the Pharaoh of Egypt's hall and demands a challenge. He challenges the Pharaoh to find a single mage who can complete his challenge, which is to read the scroll he has clutched in his hand without opening it. As Setna is known to be the most powerful magician in the land, the Pharaoh calls him. And Setna comes, and he asks for 12 days to try and solve it, because he doesn't know how to do it. And as the days progress, he gets ever more frustrated and depressed, because he cannot figure it out. Eventually, he mentions it in front of his son, Si-Osiris. Si-Osiris says, oh, that's easy. Let's note that that's probably not what Setna wanted to hear his son saying. However, Si-Osiris says he can prove it. He tells his father, Setna, to go take a scroll from his library and to seal it and have him read it, which Si-Osiris then proceeds to do. It's at this point that he's sort of being revealed to be the most powerful magician in all of Egypt at the age of 12. So, once this is done, Si-Osiris is brought to the Pharaoh's hall to complete the challenge. In various versions, the crowd mocks him, or his father claims, oh, this is such a simple task, a 12-year-old can do it. However, I'm going to skip over all that to the point at which Si-Osiris completes it. Within the scroll, it talks about a magical duel from a long, long time prior, back in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. And it says that this duel was between two magicians. One named Horus, the other also named Horus. They're distinguished by being Horus, son of the Nubian, and Horus, son of the Egyptian, or the name of the Egyptian woman. So in this story, Horus, son of the Nubian, is called by the king of his land, the king of Nubia in my version. and this king asks him to humiliate his enemy, the Pharaoh of Egypt. And Horus, son of the Nubian, derives a way to do so. He creates a litter carried by 4 statues, which goes and takes the Pharaoh of Egypt, and then brings him back in his sleep. He doesn't wake up this whole time, and has him beaten in the courtyard of Nubia's king. Now, upon being returned, the Pharaoh wakes up not really knowing what happened. And he asks his finest magician, Horus, the Egyptian, to figure out what happened. And the Egyptian Horus figures it out quickly, especially as Horus, son of the Nubian, makes the spell repeat every single night. So, Horus the Egyptian makes it so that a spell is woven to protect the Pharaoh. And that night, no harm comes to him. The next night, Horus the Egyptian makes the same thing happen to the Nubian king as revenge. And every so often, while telling this story, reading from the scroll, Si-Osiris asks the magician from the other land, "Is this true?" And the magician says yes. So after he reads through the whole thing, which in some versions it ends with a duel between Horus and Horus, the magician from the other land says, "Well, have you figured out who I am?" And Si-Osiris immediately says that he is Horus, son of the Nubian. And then Horus, son of the Nubian, challenges the court to a magic duel, attacking the Pharaoh. Si-Osiris responds and fights him. It's at that point revealed, note, this is a spoiler, that Si-Osiris is the reincarnation of Horus the Egyptian. Si-Osiris then wins the duel, triumphing over his enemy, and vanishes. That is how it ends. He literally just vanishes with the other magician. That is all for today. If anyone has any question or comment, you can ask below, and I will see you in the future.